Good morning, my dear friends. Today I wish to cover the psychosexual theory of Sigmund Freud. Actually, his psychodynamic theory is a part of your syllabus in MDC 3. But I do not know whether it has been covered or not because that paper also may be pending. But in any case, I wish to cover this psychodynamic theory first, not so extensive, but for you to understand what is the basis of his theory. Unless otherwise you study this particular area, what will happen is that many of the terminology that is used in the psychosexual theory, you may think that some vulgarity in it. No, it is not like that, because if we are taking the sex and libido, etc., in the crudest sense, then only there is issue. What he meant by his terminology is pleasure only. Please try to understand this first. Now, this theory is very important because the psychosexual theory is dealing right from birth to adolescence. Adolescence, it's a critical area, but you can simply easily manage it if you have got enough knowledge in it. So let us discuss this. So, and another thing is that his biography, that it will be asked for the viva and all that. For each and every theory, whether the other tutors or whoever, you are asked for viva, for any of the viva, practical, etc., they may ask the biography. So at that time, you should not blink. You should be very clear, because mostly you will be given the option to choose to whom you like the most. So when such questions are asked, you have the option. You can say Freud or X or Y, whoever, Pavlov, Skinner, whoever. But when you say that, now it is your responsibility, because since you like the most, you must be thorough about his historical work he did, his biography, etc. So please try to understand his evolving of the theory, his background, his studies, the birthplace, lot of many things. That you must know. It is always better that you know the details of all the psychologists, but all the theorists, I mean. But it is at least you should know the very important theories, because he is considered as the father of psychology, also the modern sciences. So there are a lot of deviations because since science is growing. Earlier, Sigmund Freud was very much treated as a base of psychology. Later, many other theories came. He was ridiculed. Now, this psychoanalysis, the psychodynamic theory, one of the psychodynamic theories, the psychoanalysis, it is coming up once again. Earlier, it was said that months and months of sitting was required. Now, even with single sitting also, this therapy can be done and improvement can be made in educated people especially. So let me read it first. Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939. Jewish background, though avowed atheist, no God. Lived in Vienna under Nazi occupation in 1938. Had medical background, wanted to do neurophysiological research. He was a neurophysicist. So he knew very well about the brain. Private practice with a specialty in neurology. One of his association was Joseph Brewer and IGNOU. There's a famous case study that you can check in the net also, IGNOU, how he was treated. He found that there was no physiological problem in the patient. It was purely due to defensive mechanism. Everything we will be discussing today itself. So, private practice in the nervous and brain disorders, the neurology specialty. Then, psychoanalytical theory of Freud. Though I am not supposed to discuss this, I told you. But since if you wanted to know, to learn in psychosexual theory, you should know this personality theory psychoanalytic theory of Freud. So psychotherapeutic application of the science to the human mind, which Freud called psychoanalysis. So if you study all this, then it will be very simple. Now you please try to understand the method of his therapeutic application for counseling or treating the neurosis is called the psychoanalysis. With Jean-Martin Charcot, interest was in the hypnosis. Hypnosis is not said to be a science because it may not work every time, and expertise, lot of things are there. When by the time you complete your course, you will come to know about all this. With Joseph Brewer, cathartic method is a bending out method. Publication, preliminary communication and studies in hysteria. Neurotic symptoms could be due to the result of splitting of consciousness, often to avoid emotional pain. So he discussed preliminary communication. He talked about the splitting of consciousness, everything. So by the time you complete the structure of the theory, when you read it again, you will understand better what is this unconscious, unconscious, preconscious, the concepts. From own work, brought to the seduction theory, that is, emotional disorders are caused by repressed traumatic memories of the childhood sexual experiences. That is the seduction theory, that if the child was abused, that could be one of the reasons. In 1902, he abandoned the seduction theory and his complete work on psychoanalysis was published. Here I have clearly written, yet all concepts are relevant. These concepts discussed here, seduction theory, as well as the cathartic method, all these things, hypnosis, everything is important. It doesn't mean that you have to forget about all the other terminology, because particular hypnosis work. For example, a person has to write an examination to undertake an event. He is so much depressed. A hypnosis may work under the hands of an expert. This is very, very important. Principle of determinism. Because he was a doctor, he was very much interested in his neurology work. He knew very well about the brain. So he connected that with the nature. How? Human mind functions through brain, a part of natural world. As part of nature, mind is also subject to natural law. As such, what governs the universe also governs the human mind. So simple is the theory or the concept of principle of determinism. All organisms, there is a speciality to human, that human brain, the forebrain, imaginations. So he is connecting that with the nature. What nature say, that only our brain to understand. Actually, man is like an animal. We only add that social animal. So when you study this theory to its in depth, you will come to know the concept of principle of determinism. It is very much relevant. The importance of socialization, education, schooling, everything is covered in this principle of determinism. The more you socialize, the more will be the social element in you, your approach towards society and the people. Human mind can be studied scientifically. The inner working of human mind is not immediately aware. What we know is only the output. In this context, he named the three mental states. There are two things. One is the various conscious levels. So the levels of consciousness. The levels of consciousness. The other one we will be studying, id, ego, superego. That is structure of personality. You have to differentiate. These are the levels of consciousness. You must be very clear. Because otherwise for examination you will be writing, even if you write both, there is nothing wrong. But you must understand the difference between the levels of consciousness and the structure of personality. The levels of consciousness are the conscious, the unconscious, the preconscious. The conscious is what is presently aware. The unconscious is totally inaccessible to the conscious awareness. The short AWS stands for awareness. The preconscious contributed from the consciousness plus unconsciousness. How? We will study that. See, you have to consider it as an iceberg. Only the tip of this ice structure is seen with our eyes. The other one is submerged in the water. So what he says is that the three levels of awareness, three levels of awareness or the consciousness levels, the consciousness, preconscious and unconscious. It is slowly only you study this, because otherwise it will not be registered in your brain. It resides at all levels of awareness, operates under the reality principle, attempts negotiation between id and superego to satisfy both realistically, hence we call poor ego. All this I will explain using this picture. After that I will be showing the slides to you. Now you please imagine this particular picture. Something, the 80% or even more than 80% is submerged in the water. Only a tip is seen above the water, which he called consciousness. That at a level, what you exhibit is so little. I mean, the 10% or whatever, the volume of this consciousness will be maybe much doubled. Many times it is doubled for equalizing this submerged area. Hope it is clear. This consciousness maybe suppose is only 10%. The rest are 9%. So the conscious level is I am aware. When you say I am aware, it is very little according to Freud. And this unconscious, the 10 times of the conscious levels may go inside the unconscious. So the volume of unconscious is so huge when compared to the consciousness. So when we study the nature, nurture and all that, the more the people grow old, the unconscious may also grow, resulting in lot of anxiety disorders, etc. according to this theory. By second year only you will be studying the mental disorders. In that, anxiety disorders are very important. You will come to know all this is coming under neurotic disorders. All these neurotic disorders because of the enlarging of the unconscious when people grow old. So solutions, etc. also is talking. Let us see. Conflicts of personality components. So conflicts between the id and superego arise in unconscious mind and ego, poor ego, the mediator. Can't be reached in unconscious. Come out in various ways. Slips of the tongue, dreams, jogs, anxiety, defensive mechanism. Now again you are blank. Those who are not familiar with the theory, you are again blank. So let us go back and discuss once again. The levels of awareness a person is having are divided into three: conscious, preconscious and unconscious. What are they? Once again I am explaining. The conscious, that is called only the tip. Very little is aware. In fact, you may say I am well aware, but it's not. You are not aware. Many of the plays are there in the unconscious parallel, because every time when there is a likes and dislikes, the pain, the sorrow, lot of issues that you suffer in the life, that you deliberately push inside the unconscious. So day by day it gets enlarged. That's what is mentioned. So the unconscious is so huge, day by day you deposit all your pain, distress, all sorrow, everything in the unconscious. And what is the preconscious? This preconscious is an asylum, please try to understand, Preconscious is an asylum for both unconscious and conscious. Mean the things from unconscious can take an asylum in preconscious, and things from the conscious also can take an asylum in preconscious. But it will not be normally filtered. The disturbing things in the unconscious mind usually do not come into the conscious because you don't allow that to come. You try to suppress it. So I will describe it with an example. It varies from society to society, culture to culture. Why? Because you will come to know when you learn this theory, the sublimation, live according to socially desirable manners. Take the culture of India and Europe. See here, I am not taking part with any of the culture. Just for your understanding only I am telling. I am not saying that our culture is high value or European culture is high value or vice versa. That is not my idea. I want to make you understand why this play is there between culture to culture. With an example I can tell you. First example I tell you. In Indian condition, a girl had an affair, including the physical relation. It's not that uncommon. We are not trying to justify, just trying to teach you with an example. But due to certain reason, she could not marry that particular person to whom she loved and shared her mind and body. Now, she has married another person and living happily. One day, when both this husband and wife were going out, and when she was just parted for some shopping also, and when she was coming towards her husband, she sees from a distant place that he is talking to her former lover. The question is, in Indian conditions, will she come forward and introduce that person to her present husband? No, no chance. She will certainly wait for that person to go, and later she will come to the husband. And what she would be telling, she would definitely ask, to whom you were talking? Do you know him? Yes, I know him. It's not a person to be to be kept in your company. Why do you know? Yes, I know him. I don't want to talk much about him. See, she had a past that she shared everything. Now that why she doesn't want to be in friendship, not because she hates him. She knows very well the structure of society in India. She doesn't want that person to be invited to the home. That is the reason. Take the case of Europe. I am not saying that all Europe is like that. I am just trying to express the levels of unconscious in relation to the culture. Because instead of talking lot of things, with an example you can understand. Usually there in Europe and all that, I am not telling that there is a greatness in here or there. And my purpose is only to make you understand. Please understand me. So here, if it were in such a country where such freedom, physical relation freedom, everything, dating, everything is permitted, as you are also aware little about it. So please try to understand that there in their culture, that freedom is there. Nobody inquires the past so deep. Here, the same incident, when the wife is seeing her former lover, talking to her present husband, usually that lady will come towards him and introduce. Yes, he was my boyfriend during my college days or during when I was working with that organization also. There is no such distress this time. So my purpose is once again I am reiterating, I am not trying to ridicule any culture also, just wanted to introduce. To introduce you the concepts of sublimation, etc., that you have to study in the defensive mechanisms. Here, what you should understand is that whenever such issues of culture or any due to your neurotic personality, in any for any reason, every day we are deposited the unconscious day by day. What will happen? The unconscious will get enlarged. So it won't. So whenever the thought is coming, the moment that thought is coming, you try to suppress or use some other defensive mechanism. Everything I will be discussing today. So you won't allow that to come to your consciousness because it is disturbing. Please try to understand. So whenever there is a disturbing thing, ridiculing, abuse, whatever, there are many reasons. So anything that is coming to the conscious level, what you will be doing, you will try to, or the person concerned will try to suppress it, don't allow it to come to the consciousness. So in fact, to put it simple, his psychoanalyst theory deals with how the things that are not coming to the conscious can be brought to the conscious through his therapy and through certain self-awareness, making certain self-awareness in the patient. Even if that is coming to the conscious, the person will not get disturbed. That is actually the therapy method. For that, a lot of training is required because sometimes his disturbance may increase, the patient's disturbance may increase. So all the techniques of solacing him, not through an advice, through his techniques of making the person aware and to live happily with a healthy awareness. So let us go to the next slides. So the conflicts between the id and the superego, again we will be discussing in the structure of personality, arise in unconscious mind and ego. This poor ego, he says, that's why it's a mediator. Everything when we discuss that particular, we will come to know. So due to that such reasons, what happens is that the disturbing things you are not allowing, we have the patient, the client concerned, is not allowing to come to the conscious level. So every time it is suppressed. So every time regularly when such suppressing or defensive mechanism is being used, a person becomes neurotic. Now, which are the defensive mechanisms? And what is a defensive mechanism? Defensive mechanisms are unconscious strategies that people use to reduce anxiety by concealing its source. Among the most important are repression, projection, displacement, rationalization, reaction formation, regression, sublimation, denial, etc. Actually, this will be taught or to be already taught in the MPC 3. So, defensive mechanisms are unconscious strategies that people use to reduce anxiety. We don't allow that to come to the conscious by concealing its source. In our example, on seeing her lover in Indian culture, what she does, she wanted to avoid. She is not willing to come. So, just think for a few days and for long period, she may think there can be an association with her present husband. So when that thought is coming, she tries to conceal. Likewise, any abuse, childhood abuse or any scalding, any painful experiences will be deposited to the unconscious. So the more it is done, the like versus dislike phenomena, dislike portion will get enlarged. The same example is said in the unconscious. Day by day, what happens day by day? It gets enlarged. Now, which are the denial? Denial, refusal to accept external realities because it's too threatening to enter awareness. Ego feels anxiety from perception of strong external and internal danger, it can't escape or deal with reality. What we will do? Tell yourself it is not happening. Tell yourself it is not your fault. Unconscious, the unconscious levels get enlarged whenever you use denial. So the conscious denial from reality. You don't accept the reality, you always each and every time try to deny it. That is the denial. Best example I will tell you. Any of these examples, because it's a complicated subject, unless you study every day, you cannot understand which is the defensive mechanism being used by the client or we ourselves. Here I am telling wife or daughter. Just I am again telling, because that is why when we are discussing this, don't take this to a crude sense, something that is happening in society. Suppose there is an allegation with wife, what husband does. Just an allegation. There is no clear evidence, or just forget about all this negative, positive, everything. But when such issues there, a man ridicules the wife and vice versa. But if it happens to the daughter, what will happen? We will try to justify the daughter and try to compensate after her marriage. After his marriage, such issues are coming. We try to compensate and we try to protect our daughter. So this is what. Every time we try to deny. But instead, if we start accepting, that is why the acceptance level will be increased once a person is allowed to live in awareness. So this is the whole purpose of the whole psychology study. Second year, you have got the therapy on it. So I will just read out in detail the other faculty for MBC 3 will be teaching. Repression. Internal impulses and memories are too threatening, so barred from entering awareness. What you do? Keep painful thoughts and feelings away from consciousness. Don't think about it. Examples: early abuse, lies we have told, we knew, yes, I told a lie and escaped. But now there's a trick of consciousness. When it's coming, either you try to justify or you try to bury it in the deep of the unconsciousness. Painful memories, you don't want that to come. Problems, diverts needed energy. Your needed energy, because of the thought disturbance every time it is coming, so you want a solution. Suppose you want to make, by making a pardon or making some compensation, whatever the old wrongs that we did can be compensated. Maybe that, but it may not be possible again culture to culture. We have limitations when we live in a family. Once another settlement has done, many things that we may not be able to compensate. But at the same time, in parallel, how can you compensate by doing some charity or some other work? But in detail that we will be discussing in the therapy part next year. See, it blocks out stressful situations that could be worked out. So this could be one of the reasons, the childhood pains that you may try to place on somebody else. You may try to do the same thing with your subordinates. If that is suppose there was a controlling parent, there was a lot of instructions, punishments. You may do the same thing to somebody. So this repression is the another defensive mechanism. Displacement. The best example for displacement will be, for example, when a person is going to the office or a school teacher, lot of issues in the house. What you will do? When you reach the school, you may show the same distress to the students. Or a bank manager, he had lot of issues in the office. Accounts are not tallying, lot of issues are there. He may give a share to the family. So shifting attention from target that is no longer available to a more acceptable and safer substitute, to another substitute, it is done. Again, during this COVID period especially, we are also not able to give the quality of education we should give. What to do? There is a limitation. Suppose we were otherwise giving everything, then also if there is a backlog of a paper, or you are not able to complete things on time, what you would say? Will anybody say that even if you are provided with everything, if you fail or if you are not able to complete your task, still you would blame somebody else only? So that's why a safer substitute. Or even now the students are telling in the group, I am not well, how can I complete? These are all defensive mechanisms only. So you know, when you joined for the course, you knew very well, and when the moment the group was formed, I think the day I entered, I gave all soft copies of everything. If you really wanted to study, because all are graduates, if you really wanted to study, you could have done, and you could have completed this assignments by this time. But every time we also find some defensive mechanism. So even now you may not agree, but only when you practice you will come to know that you are using lot of defensive mechanisms. But when you are using defensive mechanisms regularly, there will be a problem. That's what I meant. I mean, you have got a lot of anxiety neurosis, and it's called neurotic cluster of diseases. So feeling, anxiety, anger, what you do, direct the feelings away is from its actual target to another safer target. So projection, load bearing. I am sending all these slides to you also, but you should understand, I need not have to teach everything, because this has to be covered in MPC 3 and few other I will tell. Regression. Suppose a person lost to the childhood. To some extent this may be healthy, but not exactly in the society, because a person, when you have grown to the old age, you should show the maturity. But suppose he didn't get the mother's love and all that, he may consider the wife as the mother. That's what, going back to the past. And fantasy is good, like Abdul Kalam was telling. But if you simply fantasize, make only fantasy, take no effort for its accomplishment, or unrealistic fantasies, that will all end up in the lack of achievement. And sublimation, as I said, the healthiest defensive mechanism. There's a compromise. Take socially unacceptable impulses and turns them into something positive and acceptable. To put it simple, live according to socially desirable manners. You accept that this is our society, this is a culture, this is a structure, then you can simply accept the society, other people, limitations. You don't have to compare to other person. So you take socially unacceptable impulses and turns them into something positive and unacceptable. So when you try to read out, again, if you try to read out, you will again once again come to know what is the consciousness, what is the unconscious, what is the preconscious. Let me read it out so that it will be very clear to you. Current contents of your mind that you actively think of. This very little, I told you, the percentage, the volume is very little. What we call is called working memory. Easily accessed all the time. So, explanation. Only those are presently aware to human mind, not to the rule of the mind, lacks the memory capacity to provide mental phenomena, a sense of continuity over time. A selection of our storage to preconscious thoughts will at any time be conscious. It can be taken to the conscious with our limited awareness, but the more you try to suppress to the unconscious, you won't allow that to come to the conscious. The unconscious. The contents kept out of conscious awareness. I think now we are clear. That's why very slowly, again and again, I am taking the slides and discussing. First I discussed only the concepts, then I am discussing in detail. Then only you will be clear about it. Contents that kept out of conscious awareness, not accessible at all in normal walk of life. Processes in such a way that actively keep these thoughts from awareness. Now the unconscious. To know in detail, unconscious in detail, to know the individual's true physical reality, study of this state is required. The general sense it means all those psychic contents like thoughts, ideas and images which are not conscious, totally inaccessible to the conscious awareness. Why? Because again suppress. In specific sense, it means the actual region in mind which was much larger than the conscious. The volume is very, very high. But here what happens, like any other mathematics, physics subject only, you have to study this, otherwise you will not understand. So that's why first I said the concept, now I am giving it in detail. Freud held it, the unconscious lived the mental life of its own. That's why the more the person grows, more will be the unconscious. Say, the church, when you go to Kumbhasar, or in here the prayers of the Muslims, or in Indian culture, I am not talking about Hindus, the Indian culture, we had such slokas, that is, Karacharanakritam va kayajam karmajam va sravanayanajam va manasam va paradam vihidam avihidam va sarvameda kshamasva shiva shiva karnabdhi Sri Mahadeva Shambhu. Here the purpose is that before you go to bed, you take an appendix, that you take you ask the forgiveness, make a pardon for what all wrong you did. Karacharana kritam va kayajam karmajam. Whether you did it with your hands, body or mind. Manasa vacha karmana. Whether vihidam avihidam, lawful or unlawful. In whatever way you did a mistake, please pardon me. Why you do all the kumbhasaram that you do? It is never for you to repeat it. But unfortunately, we continue to do this. That is why Freud says, the unconscious lived a mental life of its own. The more you live, more will be the volume of unconscious. The dream, slip of the tongue, pace of unconscious, according to him. His studies in this are criticized. But we may accept certain area of his studies. Better you try to download his work for more understanding beyond the syllabus. Human being basically hedonistic in nature. Here you have to understand. That's why I told you, I wanted to introduce this hedonistic nature of everything to you. That is why I wanted. Without that, if I try to take classes on psychosexual theory, I am very slow today. Why? Because I want you to understand it very seriously. Hedonistic in nature. In psychosexual theory, there is a conditions of stages like oral, anal, phallic, etc. When we are taking all these things, you may think, oh, what all vulgar things the teacher is talking. No. Hedonism. Hedonism means the pleasure. So human being basically hedonistic. That's why the principles of determinism is said. They are all like animals only. Can anybody say, sitting maybe in the distant place, sitting many 100 students, can you say that you don't have hedonistic nature or you don't want pleasure? Can anybody say that you want only sorrow? No. Everyone wants only pleasure. So that's what he meant. So when you become a social animal, you try to be good in the society. Still, you do hiding the society. So every time when you hide the society and do, again the unconscious will grow, get bulged. Then hedonism. You will, by end of your second year, you will be learning a particular mental disorder that is called a psychotic disorder, schizophrenia. Many of you would have heard of it. Here, schizophrenia, one of the symptoms of schizophrenia is unhedonistic. I mean, away from pleasure. A person doesn't want any pleasure. That's one of the symptoms of schizophrenia, or not the normally accepted areas of pleasure. Maybe either he is unaware or he doesn't want. So suppose such a person is getting married, what will happen to the other partner? So hedonism is always good. It should be linked with the healthy defensive mechanism called sublimation. What society accepts only, we should do. So such memory traces are never permanently erased from our mind. That is why it is that we may not be knowing what disturbs us. What disturbs us? A person may come with anxiety, he is not able to tell what is anxiety. Could be the reason is unconscious. But unless otherwise you complete the course, Don't tell anybody that it is the unconscious act of somebody troubles you, because when you study the Adlerian theory in the next year, or you come to WhatsApp, if you have got doubt, I'll clear. Adlerian theory is a solution. He was also from the Freudian school, so he is finding solutions to such unconscious troubles. Okay. Now, the preconscious. Contents of the mind you are not currently aware of, thoughts and memories, knowledge, wishes, feelings available for easy access when needed, but also act as an asylum. Not easy to filter. It is there. You can access it with the help of a therapist or you yourself. You should be very careful when you do it, because if it is going to disturb the conscious again and again, unless or else you know the therapy and the compensation method that you have to follow, it may give more trouble. So one should be very clear. One should have that much knowledge before you do this psychodynamic therapy. It may end up, suppose a person has got suicidal tendency, it may get exaggerated, it may get increased. So should be very careful. That is why there are certain protocols by RCA, clinical psychology, who should do. Otherwise, it may lead to more distress and issues to the patient and to ourselves also. So, thoughts and memories, knowledge, wishes, feelings available for easy access when needed, but also act as an asylum. Not easy to filter through it from the unconscious to the consciousness. Much effort is required. It is accessible. It is easily accessible, provided there is a clinician, well experienced clinician, and there should be a protocol. You should come with somebody. You should see that you complete the therapy. All these are very critical. So little more detailed explanation on preconscious. It is made up of contributions from both conscious and unconscious. We discussed. It is an asylum. It is the locus of censorship in the mind. Content of preconscious is received from the conscious and unconscious, but not exchanged between them. Hence, an asylum. That's why it's an asylum for preconscious. Again, there's an issue. Unless or else you are very clear about the terminology. The preconscious, throughout the psychology, when a person is bringing, a scientist, a therapist or inventor of a therapy brings certain concepts, it's his own concept. Don't get confused with it. It is his own concept. Why? Because the preconscious is his concept. He is telling there's an asylum in between the conscious and the unconscious. But in the examination, suppose you write subconscious. Subconscious is a medical term. So it's a theoretical term that you have to understand. So I'll read once again. It is a locus of censorship in the mind. Content of preconscious is received from the conscious and unconscious, but not exchanged between them. Hence an asylum. But through effort, it can be brought to consciousness. Example, a person who was punished by his father due to the authoritarian nature might dislike the authority in future. So when one falls down, by another person laugh. See, these are all there in your childhood. You learned the learning theory. All these things are there. It results in the depositing of the unconscious. It comes out. Then sometimes certain things are coming out frequently, and you do not know the exact reason. Certain things it's being disturbed, certain events totally you do not know. At that time itself you suppressed. So with the help of a therapist you can do. So don't get worried about all these concepts. It's a very deep subject. Unless I say put that much effort into psychology studies, anybody can study. That's why even a Malayalam graduate can join in our psychology PG program. Anybody can learn. The only thing is you sincerely take up the schools. Now, the Freudian components of personality. Here the structure of personality. Suppose the examination is asked structure of personality is id, ego, superego. There's nothing wrong if you discuss the other levels of awareness or consciousness. But if you write that only and if you don't write this in specific, so what will happen? You will lose mark. The id, the ego, the superego. Let us see what else. These are the division of mind. The biological bedrock of motivation. Raw sexual and aggressive impulses not bothered of external reality, pleasure principle. Like an animal, see the dogs, whenever they want a sexual satisfaction, it gets engaged. Hence, most of the animals. So he says that that's the bedrock. It's a motivation too. Again, the pleasure principle is we discussed. Hedonism is the pleasure principle. If a person is unhedonistic, he will not take any effort. There are people like that. I don't want anything. That is also there. So it is the biological bedrock of motivation, raw sexual and aggressive impulses, not bothered of external reality, the pleasure principle. The superego, much bothered about the restrictions in the society, the ideal principle. How a person should be ideal. Well, there is no name called Sushila sitting in front of me. It's a benchmark. Sushila is a benchmark. But you know that person may not have that qualities or may not be at the expected benchmark. Likewise, superego is a benchmark, much bothered about the restrictions of society. Ego, the mediator. So again, his terminology. When you say ego, that is different. He has got head weight. Likewise, what we say, what do you mean by ego? But here the terminology is provided by whom? Freud. So according to Freud, the ego is the mediator, that part of the personality responsible for coordinating with the internal and external reality. Please try to understand. Here, this terminology is brought by Freud. The main function is to secure the gratification of drives of id while keeping one out of danger. Importance of sublimation, the reality principle. So the ego is a mediator between id and superego. Again, to memorize the id, if you write libido, Libido, you get id. Libido. So that id can be easily remembered and connected with libido. So it is a bedrock. Suppose I want a relation with a person, she is very beautiful. What immediately restricts the superego? So that is why. If the superego is so weak in a person, what will happen? You will connect all these things with the childhood egocentrism in another class when I take up the development theory of Pierce. Here you should understand. These are two extremes. One is id, pleasure principle, like an animal. Whatever you want to do, you want to do. Suppose I want a car. What is wrong in stealing? Here comes the superego. Society is not permitting, law is there. And not only that, it is not a mannerism. It is not the way you should live in the society. All these instructions will automatically come. A person who lacks superego is very weak in it. You have got a test in the first year itself, 16 personality trait. The superego is coming into this. You remember, unless you know the terminology, you cannot understand. So id is one extreme, the pleasure principle. I want to gratify my pleasure. Superego prevents, pulls you back. Please try to understand. It is something that you want to accomplish the entire. Superego is the other part. It is pulling you back from doing it. Suppose a person has got that much superego. He may seek permission from his wife every time for a romantic mood, against a romantic mood. So it's a via media. So that is why ego is the via media. In another slide I will be explaining with picture. But try to understand. Ego is a mediator between id and superego. That is why Freud called poor ego. Every time it's trying to mediate between id and superego. For example, I wanted to do want money. Okay, somehow I make money. So society won't agree. You know many people who are doing it, cheating, even when through Google Pay, through network system, banking system, people are stealing. You cannot even find out why. This is because of the superego is very less. So both id and superego are required, but it should be in the most ideal way. So when the ideal principle is that going too much the ideal life also troubles you. Going too much to the id, bedrock of motivation, the pleasure, that also troubles. That is why ego. So education, culture, training, family life, learning that we discussed in the last class, everything is very important. That's why I taught purposely the learning theory. Through the learning, super ego can be made healthy. So the id. See, I told you I am going to explain using a picture. So the id, you see, explaining through a picture, you will be more clear. See the superego. It's an angel. Superego is an angel. Suppose a person, all the people in the society are an angel. What will happen? The partner may have little more interest in the romantic sexual life. A person is superego. He believed that okay, sexual relation is only for reproduction. Now the children are, we have children, everything is okay. Why should we go for recreation? So likewise, so id, Satan. That is why this picture is given. So without, many people are living in the society without looking into the social rules. I mean de facto, not de jure. So reality principle to make a compromise between id and superego. So I think it is clear now. Through the picture you are clear about it. That's why Freud called this ego is poor ego. Resides completely at the unconscious level, act under the pleasure principle, immediate gratification, not willing to compromise, generates all of the personality's energy. So this personality may be very less. I'm not talking about the individuals. Even serial is there. Such serial killing is done. These are all maybe the id. But they also may be psychotic, antisocial personality disorders. So this, when it is so strong, not bothered about the superego at all, there is a problem to the society. So every learning is important. That's why I took this particular theory, learning, and explained what is the importance of cognition, everything. Now, ego. It resides in all levels of awareness, operates under the reality principle, attempts negotiation between id and superego to satisfy both realistically, hence the poor ego. Anyhow, teaching in detail this subject is the faculty under NPC 3 will be doing. So superego, the moralistic and idealistic part of the personality, resides in the pre-consciousness, operates on ideal principle, begins forming at 4 to 5 years of age, initially formed from environment and others, society, family, education. I said, you give the best education child, superego can be developed. So that is why you say, when you associate with wrong thoughts through the peers, taking drugs, smoking, all that such habits will result in reduction in the superego. Internalized conventions and morals. How, when I say smoking, many students may be smoking. Why sir is telling like this? Do you know about the passive smoking? It also results in the cancer to the public. That is why it has been banned. Smoking in the public places banned. Dr. Anthony Ramdas, maybe some 20 years back, when he was health minister and central health minister, he did that. Still, we don't bother. Or since because our superego is very weak, what is the culture of us? When we use common toilet, we don't clean it. That is why we are reluctant to go. We ourselves are reluctant to go. Those who spit on the road, issues of superego. So issues in superego, I mean not issues of superego, issues in superego. That is, if you are nurtured, the nature-nurture concept. If you are nurtured properly, superego will be well balanced. That's what I meant. So that's why schooling, everything is important. Family, home, I said Form is very much important. So, internalized conventions and morals, essentially your conscious, manifection. Conflicts of personality. Conflicts between id and superego arise of unconscious mind and ego, overego the mediator, can't be raised in unconscious, come out in various ways, slips of tongue, dreams, jokes, anxiety, defense mechanism we have already covered. Now, having studied the Freudian concepts of the levels of consciousness, conscious, preconscious and conscious, and the structure of personality, id, ego, superego in detail, I am trying to teach you the basic principle of Freudian stages of development. This stages of development is very, very important. Very, very important. In rearing a child. This is spread throughout your text, especially till adolescence period. The other theories, Piaget's theory and Erik Erikson's theories are also equally important. Only difference is that when Freudian theory is talking only till 18, Piaget's theory is talking only till 18, Erikson theory is throughout the life. Again, you should understand after their life, or Freud as well as Piaget, lot of studies have taken place. Also in Erikson. So in Piaget you will find metacognition, meta-metacognition. So that such a superior level of intelligence and level of thought any person can achieve. That's what I meant. So my purpose here is to teach you the Freudian states of development. That's why I took all the pain to teach the at least to give the basis of Freudian psychoanalytical theory. So one of the psychodynamic theories. Why I wanted to teach you is that without that, now if I am talking about the oral, anal, phallic, you will say some vulgarity. Now you don't feel. Now let us begin. So immediately after birth, 0 to 1.5 is called the oral, focus is oral pleasure. Now where in your text you will see this. Age, stage and focus. You should know. The age is actually you have to by heart all these theories. I will send a summary in the after I take all my classes. I will put a summary stating all the three theories, and you have to by heart this, and you should know the age, stage and focus. What is the expected values, the benchmark? Why? Because to correct ourselves wherever correction is possible. You can do it, especially when children are brought, it is possible. So now it is done as 3 columns, age, stage and focus. So let's see 0 to 1.5, that is immediately after the birth. Immediately after the birth, 0 to 1.5, oral pleasure. Why it is said? Suppose even without a cesarean, when a child, even otherwise also, the oral will be there. But you just imagine, after a lot of laboring, when the child is coming out, the child is also equally very much tired, very much tired. So after a lot of laboring, when the child is coming out, the child is very much tired. The child will be trying to suck something. Why? The learning theory we studied. The child is learning 5 faculties while in the womb. So oral pleasure. First the colostrum, everything is taught you. I mean, I think you are aware of this. Why? It gives immunity. Now, what is the importance of this oral pleasure? A child, a small baby, he has no other activity. Urinate, defecate and drink the milk. That much only is the job of the, and play with the thoughts, whatever available immediately after birth till 1.5. Again, the continuity, discontinuity principle. Don't just compartmentalize. It can be till 1 year, 1/4, 1/2, maybe till 2 years. But some compartmentalization for better understanding. That must only you try to understand. But in Piaget's principle, it has got some other parallels. That also we will discuss. What is the importance of that compartmentalization? So here you have to understand. Freud is asking, here is the importance. Freud is talking about fixation. A child shall not be fixated according to him. Why? For example, child experience lots of dislike, our like-dislike phenomenon you remember. Child experience lots of dislikes, you imagine like that. What will happen? When the child is experiencing lot of dislikes, that will be deposited. The platform we discussed, like dislike platform. The child will be depositing lot of dislikes. Child doesn't want to take mother's milk. Maybe due to many other reasons. The mother may be having constipation, the food of the mother, the particular taste, the smell of the breast. That is why now the feeding is an art. Earlier also mother's cream. Now special training is done in super specialty hospitals. Why? Because change in some taste, change in some smell in the mother, change in the position, how the child is being cuddled while feeding. All these are important. So it would avoid fixation. Fixation to the other extreme is also bad, because only when new steps are adopted by the mother, child will like. That is also the other extreme of fixation. Anyhow, a via media method of feeding, more and more taste, smell, everything will result in the healthy development of a child. That is why it is well mentioned in the gynecology department. The training is given that how a child should be reared. Child should be comfortable almost. That is the purpose. If the mother is having constipation, then if the studies say that may result in the child's health, pain, the taste, better the taste. So such things are very important. That is the importance of oral pleasure. The oral fixation may result in a lot of other behavioral issues in future. That's what it meant by what? Dislikes towards eating, or so much like. So both are fixations only. So you have to imagine in an imaginative way, these principles have to be studied. Because for a small child, studies are difficult to some extent, because from the observation level, only through observation one can find the pleasure, like, dislike experienced by the child during this period. And again, anal stage. In the anal stage, it is written here 1-3, can be 1.5 to 3. I am not compartmentalizing exactly. You please try to understand. You can take this as 1.5 to 3 also. This anal stage, control of bodily functions. See, why this is important is because, see, when by 1/4, 1.5 year, the child will begin, after 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, the child will be taking solid food also, semi-solid food. By 1.5, child will be taking the solid food. Naturally, this stool of the child also will be coming out in one stretch. And here is the importance of, that's why I taught you the Freudian pleasure principle, hedonism. Everyone is living for pleasure. You know why it is called the comfort station? Toilets. This is because the anal stage in a healthy body, as all of us know, in our healthy body, toileting itself is a pleasure-giving event. So now, earlier the child was in 1 year, 6 months, the child is almost in the bed early, not able to walk. When the child started walking by 1.25, taking solid food, the stool is also coming out one stretch. The child finds there is some pleasure in it. The children are psychologists. So some pleasure in it. So Freud say there is a chance of postponing. The particular word Freud uses procrastination. Why? Because the child understands that once the defecation is over, usually the child has to wait for the next day. So there's a reason that the child may postpone it, because child understands the pleasure. Here is the importance of toilet training. When the toilet training is done, you can imagine, most of your mothers or the sisters, all this you should understand, you know how the schooling is related to the defecation. The school bus is coming, still the child is not ready. Mother has to force for toileting. So all this, unless there is a routine is developed in the child, this stage may complicate the schooling age. So that is why the toilet training, you have the basket, you train the child to defecate by 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It's best you train the learning theory that we have studied. Why this is important? Because if you don't train the child, nowadays the life of the people are like that. People, even the small child sleeps after watching all the TV. So when you send the child to school, it may result in a lot of issues, because without toileting the child is going, the ayah of the school has to manage it. So the ayah may punish the child may get a pet name, a nickname. So all these things may result in issues. So you have to understand that anal stage is very, very important, and the procrastination, cowardly nature also result in the child, if it is fixated, that is trying for enjoying the pleasure by delaying the defecation. So that should not happen. That's what actually the anal period is considered by Freud. You have to understand the importance of anal period. It's a training period for to train the child to follow a routine. Then when the child is admitted to the school, be comfortable. So 3 to 6 is a phallic period. Again, as we discussed, every word is very, very important. Phallic, you should know what is the phallic meaning. Phallic means this lap, the hip portion. So this portion, phallic, means in 3 to 6. By 3, the child will be playing with peers, both sexes. The child understands something. That is, into 3, that's why whenever I talk about oral, anal, phallic, unless I taught you the hedonistic principles of Freudian theory, you may find what is this nonsense? No. Even a smallest child, immediately after birth, what it wants? Comfort. If it has a dislike towards the mother's milk, it may not. So it will really cry. The cuddling, songs, everything will improve the feeding. Likewise, same way, the anal, that you have to imagine and find better solutions. So the toilet training is one of the solutions. So the food, for example, anal stage, how it can be managed? Instead of junk food, if you give enough fibrous food, that is why even at 6th standard it is taught what is balanced diet. I think you may remember it. A diet, when the food, balanced food means you should have enough carbohydrate, fat, protein, minerals, vitamins, fiber, and water. All these 7 items. So unless all these are given and junk food is given even at 10 o'clock, what will happen? Defecation will not take place. So all this training is very much important. Similarly, the phallic is that much important in the society. Why? Because sex role identification and moral development. What happens is that, especially in today's life, what happens, you can understand, in the 3 to 6 period, the olden days, even the undergarments were not used by the, these are Freud's observations. When our grandparents might have observed, even I have observed, that the children of 3 to 6 may fondle at their genitalia, enjoy certain pleasure. Nowadays it is not that common because according to Freud, pleasure is fixed. Pleasure is experienced at the hip side. So that is why when the child is taken to the society, even if there is an abuse, sexual abuse, but the child is given only pleasure. Child is not given any pain, no bleeding, nothing is there. The child also, suppose the child enjoys. What will happen? You just imagine. The child will not comply. Similarly, normally when a child of 3 to 6 is there in the family, that means the parents are also in extreme romantic moods. So there is a chance that child is entrusted to the neighborhood, to other flat. See, this is not to threaten, I am telling this. This is a fact on processes. In today, what will happen? Sometimes the parents themselves want to avoid the child for some time for their pleasure. They may entrust laptop, they may entrust good videos, video games, give mobile to them, so that for their exclusive private pleasures, they may entrust the child somewhere else, get engaged with child. The children are psychologists. Again, in the bedroom. Nowadays, no, just by pressing an app, the small child may also visualize a blue film. So in the modern society, children are exposed too much. They have got all opportunity. And 3 to 6 period means what is that small child. Children knows many things. That is why sex role identification and moral development. Sex role identification in specific is that both the sexes of the children finds that there is some difference between two sexes. The children may inquire or children may peep in a bathroom. What is the difference? Naturally, children are psychologists. Children will connect to the female sex to the mother and male sex to the father. So there is a very chance that they may peep in the bedroom too. So all this learning and fixation may result in issues. Even when the children are asking, Mom, what is the difference between the sister and my organ? You may scold. No, this is not the way. Children are to be dealt in such a way that they are not having any doubts. You can simply say females are like a mother and males are like father. Naturally, they have got a lot of curiosity. They may peep in the bedroom also. So all these things, there is every chance that children learn all this either from own house or from the neighboring house. So this is not to threaten, but to make you understand that it is during the phallic period, most child abuses are there. To some extent, children also permits if only pleasure is given. But it may go beyond the limits, and not only that, it is not expected behavior during this period. So it is the responsibility of the parents to take care of the children during the phallic period of 3 to 6 because the pleasure is now fixated at the lap. Okay. So then comes the latency period. Here again I am telling, unless or else you know the word meaning of each and every phallic latent, latency means repression of pleasure. The child is like a sannyasi. Here, in 6 to 12, you can know that child, 6-year-old child is admitted into a school. Even much prior to that, child is admitted into schools like play school, LKG and all that. But the first standard is also very crucial. Then 12 year means the child is reaching to 6th standard. See, most of the students sitting in front of me, maybe in the distant places, are all teachers. Now you know, if you check, The 6th standard means all the basics are taught. All the basics are taught well, including the multiplication, all these four faculties of the mathematics, everything is taught. All the basics of science, everything is taught. So now it is said, he found that it is a latency period. It's a great contribution of Freud, especially in his period, this electronic era. It was not an electronic era. This much exposure was not there to the child. So you have to modulate according to the age also, to the period we live. So the latency will be lost if phallic is lost, sure. Why? Because during phallic period, the child should not be abused. Here now every chance that child get abused, partially even child permits, because of the exposure the child has. So what will happen? The latency period, that is the most beautiful period for the child. Why? Because repression of all pressures. The child can be turned and tuned in any direction as you wish, especially during the academics, 1st standard to 6th standard, when the child is having that much opportunity to learn and understand the academic and to get a base. So in such a case, if the child, the earlier period of phallic is lost and abused, a lot of issues are either the pain, that also will affect to the latency period. Latency period, child has got some bad experiences, child may have build a paranoid behavior even during the school period, and child may spread this message to others. Lot of issues child may create in the school atmosphere, also the family atmosphere. So the phallic period is to be taken care of. Latency period is the most beautiful period because child can be tuned to any academics, any of the extracurricular activities. It's the best period to build the personality of the child. That's why it's written. When derailed, either due to poor parenting, educational lagging, or other environmental condition contributed by society, they lose academics and socialization. That is why this number 1 is superscribed. So you should read it, and by this time I think you are able to understand what you mean by these periods of oral, anal, phallic, and latent. Now one more period, that is a period of Freud, ends at 18, this theory. But his school has introduced a lot of other learning, education, a lot of books have been published by his school. Now 12 to 18 is called genital. It's called heterosexual interest. You know, if you just imagine, write 1 to 100, 1-100, the teen comes only from 13 to 19. So exactly, I told you, the continuity, discontinuity, not exactly the period that we mean, the hormonal period. Suppose it may begin from 11th also. But normally the teenage means adolescence. You know that genital period. That means, that is why Western society permits dating. A child of 13, 14 can have dating. There are also rules. They cannot be abused by the elders. So of their age, of peers, they can have the dating. Here is the importance. I am not saying that the Western culture is to be brought to India, because there the population is very less. Any type of job reward well, there is dignity of labor, everything. So in India it is not like that. Even a CBSE teacher with MSc mathematics may get 10,000 only. So we have got 135 crore people. So we cannot bring that, that's a sublimation of Freud. We cannot bring that culture to India. Maybe slowly it may be coming, that's a different thing. Here you should understand that the teenage is genital period, there is hormonal issue. So heterosexual interest will be there, homosexual as well as heterosexual interest will be there. Especially there in Europe, pure heterosexual interest, opposite sex dating is possible. Now, but this is what a psychologist should understand. In India or Indian culture, similar cultures, if there is a love affair by a girl or boy, they are punished. Dating, not even dating, just a relation, a love relation, a romantic relation, they are punished. In Europe, if they don't find a friend for dating, they may take the psychologist. Here, if that such a relation, just a talk may result in bringing to the child the psychologist, she is not concentrating the studies, she has got all. See, you have to understand, the hormonal thing is there, whether it is in Western culture or in India. Now, with the increase of the visual media and all the devices that we have, certainly the children will have, so the children should not be blamed. And it is not to recommend that let the child have the circulation for getting the education and all that. Lot of things are there. In Europe, by 13, 14, 15, they start working and earning. Here, even at 30, here we may not be getting any employment. Lot of issues are. So, I'm not saying that you have to simply compare and bring that culture here. Only thing is that genital period is a hormonal period. So, there is nothing wrong. The child's attention is lost. Again, you just think about it. The child lost since the child lost the phallic period, the latent period is also lost, or the latent period alone is lost, the schooling is disturbed. The child doesn't get good marks. Now the child is not accepted by the school, the family and the society. It's not a good boy, good girl. So she or he is not able to concentrate on the studies. What the child should do? Similar children will be there in the school, in the classroom. For both, academics is very difficult. Social skills are also very less. So let them go for the sexual pleasures, such enjoyments. Who can say it is wrong? So we should, as a psychologist, should know there is nothing wrong in it. Only thing is that we have to modulate according to the culture of any area. So in the metro city, it may be permitting, or the such rich class family, they may be permitting dating even now. So it depends on the society that you live. Anyhow, the academics should not be lost. That is very, very important. If the academics is lost by hormonal period, when the child, before the child reaches hormonal period, the social skills as well as academics should be achieved. Eric Erickson also is saying same thing, that when the next class I am covering that, I'll come to that. Now you read it. While during adolescence growth, irrespective of the cultural settings, the physiological development fly children to heterosexual demands. Losing of just above period, 6 to 12 period for academics and social achievement should definitely make them unsocially achieving adolescence demands. And there is a difference between socially receiving the achieving the adolescence demands. I mean accepting the culture and society. Even if there is a lawfare, we should not lose the academics. We should not go beyond the expected physical relation. If child goes beyond that, lot of other issues will be there, because sexual education is not a part of our education, schooling even now, unlike the Western culture. So there will be children may carry their loss, the whole, as a psychologist I know many people are coming like that. So all these issues will be there. So that is why every stage should be taken care of. Oral, anal, phallic, latent as well as the genital. I think you are very clear. We will be discussing, linking this along with that of Eric Erickson theory in the next class. Good day.